Hi, my name is Morgan and I did my biology IA on how does the lactose source in either pasteurized cow milk or pasteurized goat milk affect the rate of lactase activity as measured by the amount of glucose produced over time. So even just saying my research question kind of segues into my advice. And with starting the IA, Ms. Olenichek tells you for a couple weeks, if not a month, to think about your research question and think about what you want to do and all of these things. And I think a good IA really starts from having a really good research question. So I think that is a really big piece of advice, to make sure that before you even start, that one, you're passionate about your research question, or at least as passionate as you can be. Even if biology isn't your thing, or like you're not really a sciencey person, I would definitely choose something that you like to do and not something that you just saw online or something you're just trying to get it over with. So definitely something that kind of interests you in any way, because it's going to make the process easier and just overall less of a burden. My second piece of advice would be to definitely start before, right before each deadline, especially with the rough draft. Before our rough draft was due, we had different parts of it due like the week leading up to it, and it was really confusing, and especially with the rough draft, it was really confusing to figure out what was going on and what we had to have in our IAs. So what worked for me, and I think what really helped make my IA successful, at least in my perspective, is that when I was writing my rough draft, I looked up sample IAs on the IB website, and I don't know if all of them that I found were like specifically from the IB website, but they were really helpful to me in figuring out especially formatting and what information really I needed to include that I might have forgotten, because the rubrics can get very intimidating, and I try not to, I don't want to say don't read the rubric, but at least for me, I try to get other means of seeing what I need to put in there instead of reading, a very formal and general rubric. And it's hard for me to visualize like what that means for my paper. So that was definitely really helpful for me, and it helped me be successful with that, I would say. But a struggle that I had, and I know a lot of people in my class had, was we didn't start, until closer to the deadlines, and I definitely think that was a mistake, because yes, we were really busy, but we could have put in, at least I could have put in like 30 minutes a night or 30 minutes on a Saturday or whatever, leading up to when it was due, because if you're having difficulties and you have questions, you can go and ask Miss Olenichek along the way, instead of, it's due Sunday night and you're doing it on Sunday and you can't go ask Miss Olenichek or whoever your teacher is. You can't just ask them like in the middle of a day on a Sunday, or get help on whether it be data analysis or how to include something and things like that. But I do think that was a big struggle. Another piece of advice I have is, after you turn in your rough draft, when you have your conference, definitely really take those comments into account, because even though you may not agree with them, your teacher knows what they're talking about, and they've done this a lot before, so it's really important to take those comments and actually change your IA to make it less of a rough draft and more of a final. And this process was a lot easier for me, because when I took those comments into account, I was able to convert it from a rough draft to a final draft in a matter of a couple of hours. So that was really easy for me. And I think it was successful for me to do that, and to really take those suggestions into consideration. But I kind of jumped ahead. I did want to talk about briefly the experiment itself. Like I said, choose something that you're actually interested in, and not just something that's like, by the book, really standard. But just know that, at least the struggle that I had and a lot of my friends had, is that the experiment took way longer than we expected it to. And the teachers offered work days on Saturdays, and on staff development days for students to come in and use the classrooms and have all the materials. And my experiment had a lot of setbacks and a lot of like trial and error in making my solutions and getting the right ratios before I could even start making the trials. So definitely plan for that and don't get discouraged if it doesn't work out. I was at school on a Saturday for 7 hours doing my biology experiment. And definitely take a lot of pictures. I took pictures of my measurements for my data. I took pictures of that so I could make my data table as good as it could be. I took pictures of setbacks. I took pictures of my lab setup, and I only ended up using one in my actual paper, but I did use a lot of them more behind the scenes as like a refresher and to help me when writing the paper, because I wrote it at least a week after I did the experiment. The last thing I would say is to, as cliche as it sounds, to have fun while you're doing it, and like I said, don't make it such a burden. I definitely had fun doing my experiment because I was actually interested in my results and to see what would happen, and I'm not really a science person, and that was really interesting to me. And just lean into the process and don't spend all your time complaining about the IA. I know that I could have been more efficient and more successful if I hadn't done that. So definitely have fun, as cliche as that sounds. But kind of to sum it all up, I would say definitely ask questions, because there's no harm in asking questions, and the teachers are there to help you. They're not there to make your life harder and to make you confused. This is a very important assignment, and it's going to IB, and it's part of your diploma, so definitely ask questions and never feel like you're asking too many questions, because I certainly asked a lot of questions. So yeah, good luck on your IAs, and I wish you the best.